Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the DriveOhio Career Connections webinar. This is a new series that's connecting students and educators with employers to talk about career opportunities in the world of smart mobility. So I'm Rich Granger from DriveOhio. We're an initiative of the Ohio Department of Transportation. We're the state center for smart mobility on the ground and in the air. And we're super excited to have some great collaborators here with us today to talk about automated vehicles. Sometimes we call them AVs. And so as we get rolling, we'll talk about what that means and how they're being used all across the state with some of these awesome partners that we have right here. So I'm going to quickly introduce our panel, and we're going to jump right into our conversation. With us today, I have Billy Carroll from TRC. I have Michelle Murak from TRC, and I have Abby Fela from Ease Logistics. And I'm going to let each of them talk a little more about what their role is, what a day in the life looks like at their organization, and maybe even a little bit about what they enjoy the most about their job. So let's start with some introductions. Let's start off with Michelle.
Thanks, Rich. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Murak. Again, I'm at Transportation Research Center. I'm our manager of crash safety. So that means I oversee our applied biomechanics and crashworthiness research. A typical day in the life at TRC in my world, it can range from aligning research goals, development of test matrices, but also actually conducting the testing, troubleshooting when the testing inevitably doesn't go the way we anticipated, and then analyzing lots and lots of data, and of course, plenty of documentation because it's not science unless you write it down. So I'll pass it over to Billy, who's also at TRC.
Thanks, Michelle. My name is Billy Carroll, and I'm actually the recruiting manager at the Transportation Research Center in East Liberty, Ohio. A day in my life, I get to help hire all the people that do the work that Michelle does. So it's pretty exciting on my side as a recruiter. I get to see so much amazing things and learn so much information that I don't know any other recruiter has ever done. I've got to experience so much great, cool stuff in my year and a half here. I can't talk enough about how exciting it is to be in this industry.
Wonderful.
Abby?
Thanks, Billy. Yeah, Abby Fela from Ease Logistics. We're based here out of Dublin, Ohio, but service customers all over the country. And we are a logistics provider, logistics and full service managed solutions. So we can talk a little bit more about what that means later. But I get to work with fun partners like the Ohio Department of Transportation, DriveOhio, TRC, to test out some of the really cool technologies we're going to be talking about here today. But I am our VP of Business Operations, which means I oversee all of the businesses that support our providers who transport freight every day. So HR, IT, marketing, and the really cool part of strategy and innovation, where we get to look at new technologies and new innovations and really understand how to apply those to logistics and the transportation industry.
Awesome. Yeah, that innovation piece is always my favorite too. That's where all the fun stuff happens, right?
It's all fun, right? But innovation is always the thing that lets our creative minds go.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, as we're getting to know each of you a little better, if you could each just give us a quick summary of what you studied, how you got to where you got, a little bit just about your career journey, however you'd like to share that. Maybe we'll start with Billy this time.
Well, so my story on how I got into recruiting is a little different than most. I took a temporary position with a global company it was supposed to last 3 days. And I ended up being there for a year and a half, and they saw I had some skill, and I got into a recruiting role and fell in love with it and have stayed ever since. I do have some college background, but I will be the first to admit that I did not finish, but still have a very respectable career in a wonderful industry.
Super. Thank you. Michelle, did you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm an Ohio gal, grew up in Cleveland, but made my way down south to The Ohio State University. I couldn't get enough school, so I got my bachelor's and master's from Ohio State. And then actually, while I was working on my degrees, I worked in a research lab there, the Injury Biomechanics Research Center, another collaborator with TRC. And so I actually got to see TRC before I graduated. saw the property and was like, man, I want to work there. And luckily enough, I got a role at TRC and have been here ever since.
That's super. Yeah, that chance to see something while you're studying is, I think we'll come back to that later, but that's a great experience. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Super. Abby?
Thank you. Yeah, my background's a little different. Unlike Michelle and Billy, who it sounds like have known kind of where their careers were going to land for a while, I studied communications at Ohio University down in Athens. I'm also from Columbus and went down to Athens for 4 years and got my degree from there. I always thought I wanted to be in sports marketing, to be honest. So the goal was to do sports marketing when I graduated, and I did get an internship right after graduation with the Columbus Blue Jackets. It was my first job out of college, unpaid, by the way, an unpaid internship, just because I wanted to do it. And then from there, I stayed really in the innovation events space throughout my entire career, but was in politics for a while, spent some time in finance, spent some time in the automotive industry, most recently in human performance and incentive management, and then came to ease just about 2 years ago. So logistics was brand new for me, but the great thing about my varied background is I am able to take all of that experience that I've gotten from college through today and apply it to this industry and think about things differently. So it's not always as clear of a path as maybe Michelle and Billy have had. So I've had a lot of fun working in different industries, and it's been fun to be landing in logistics.
Wonderful. Well, those are all great stories, and I think a nice example of how there are lots of different ways to get where you want to go, and the journey in some ways just always keeps going, right? So that's great. Well, let's talk about technology. Let's talk about automated vehicles a little bit. Michelle, maybe we'll start with you just to talk about, what are some of the exciting ways that you're working with automated vehicles at TRC, and maybe if you don't mind also just kind of giving our audience just a quick primer on what we mean when we say AVs, because it can vary, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so my role with automated vehicles, which when we talk about that, we're talking about vehicles that have these, different levels of sensing technologies that can provide basically active countermeasures in the event of a crash incident. Some of the technologies you guys might see as you're starting to drive some of your own cars is that the advanced emergency braking or the lane keep assist are some examples of autonomous technologies that are currently integrated into our vehicles. But my specific role, as I mentioned, I'm our manager of crash safety. And so I think a lot of people think, wait a minute, automated vehicles are not supposed to be crashing. How can you be working with these, right? But one thing that, is really important is even as this technology gets integrated, we want to make sure that they still are safe in the event that there is a crash, right? And so you're not only looking at making sure all of the road itself and the structures are safe, but of course the occupants inside. And so a big part of what my group is doing to kind of keep pace with all of these technologies are looking at, how can the boundary conditions of a crash event change as these automated vehicles continue to penetrate the market? Are we looking at different speeds of crashes? Are they coming in at different angles, right? Or potentially are people sitting differently in the cabin? Could they be reclined? Could they even be seated backwards? And so all of these things kind of have to be looked at to see how should we be changing our crash testing as we move forward into this space.
Fascinating. No, that's super helpful. And Billy, I may ask you a little different version of the question. So realizing that much of what happens at TRC you can't talk about, what are some of the coolest things that you can talk about that
that is the hardest thing, is that when I go out to talk and people are like waiting to hear all this great stuff we do, and I'm like, we do a lot of great stuff. I just can't tell you about it. I will tell you one thing that I get to do as a recruiter on site. I love to learn as much as I can about the positions I have open. So I get to do things like I've gotten to go on a ride along in the autonomous vehicles and the autonomous semi. I've been out on our track, our high speed 7.5 mile track, and going 65 miles an hour in a semi. The command comes across to release. The driver lets go of the wheel, and we're going 65 miles an hour, doing lane changes like it is nothing. And that was so exciting for me. So I love to get to tell the stories like that. Like I said, anytime I get a chance, I'm always down at our customers, seeing what's going on, talking to our people, learning what they learn and how excited they are about the work they're doing.
Yeah. No, that's super exciting. And I've been there for many tours, and I wish I could say more, but I will share the excitement. And I guess if you want to see it, you just have to come work there, right? That's the
Absolutely.
answer.
Or,
Yeah.
I mean, we love giving tours.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's very true. We've had a lot of school tours out there. That's wonderful. Abby, what's your perspective on automated vehicles at ease, especially from a collaboration standpoint? Because we're all kind of working together, aren't we?
Yeah, we are on a very exciting project that has to do with automation. And I know what Billy and you were talking about with the test track as well. I as well got to go out to TRC and ride in the trucks as we tested out platooning technology. So not driverless, where they said hands off the wheel, like Billy got to experience. Our drivers still had hands on the wheels, but it is a cool experience, and also not testing drivers riding backwards like Michelle was alluding to. But although I do want to learn more about that too, Michelle, it sounds like an interesting test.
I'll send you some papers.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds interesting. So for ease, it's really about we know that the industry is going to change, right? Our world is changing. Things are going towards more autonomous vehicles. It's just the way the world's going, and we don't want to be left behind. Now, I will say that I don't believe, maybe even in my lifetime, that we will see truly driverless trucks just going down the road on their own, right? There's a lot of risk involved, a lot in that, years of testing that are going to need to happen. And just like TRC, safety is the number one thing that ease is focused on. So making sure that our drivers are safe, making sure that our communities are safe, the other drivers on the road, and all the while making sure that we are being efficient and lessening any impact to the community. So the work that is being done at TRC and DriveOhio is really imperative to then come to ease and put it in a real world setting. So the cool thing with partnerships like this are TRC and our other partners get to create all of this technology and then come to someone like Ease and say, hey, how can we collaborate with your drivers? And how does this work in the real world in a very closed scenario where we are testing safely and then safely putting out onto the roadways some of this? So in our world, it really is just trying to test technology and understand how it's going to impact our industry. And we always say that the goal with automation, at least here at Ease, whether it's with the autonomous trucks or autonomous forklifts in our warehouses or other technology that our warehouse uses, is never to eliminate jobs, but to elevate jobs. So as we get into careers, it's all about upskilling and reskilling these positions to make them more attractive to people coming into our fields. So it's fun to work on, and we couldn't do that here without partners like TRC and ODOT and DriveOhio.
Wonderful. No, that's great. And yeah, that's that idea of elevating. That's a wonderful thought. And yeah, it is just so interesting to see this combination of, you've got government, you've got private industry, you've got a nonprofit research center, and then you've got academics, kind of all integrated here too. So it's just a great example of the ecosystem in Ohio. So we're just excited. Let's talk about career pathways for a few minutes. Billy, this is your world. I'm going to start with you and maybe just ask you, what are some of the coolest AV related jobs that you see? I mean, every job at TRC is cool, right? But
it really is. So it's really hard for me to pinpoint one, but I think right now my favorite job that I've been out and shadowed is the autonomous specialists we have. They're actually operating the vehicles. They're doing that testing. They're getting to run software programs to see what the air is. They're right, in the thick of it all, doing all the cool stuff. So that right is my favorite job right now as far as coolness goes.
Very cool. And sticking with TRC, Michelle, like what are some of the jobs that you feel like are the most helpful for your team and the type of work that you do? And what are some of the growth opportunities that you see for people once they get started?
Yeah, so we have kind of a range of engineering technicians, research engineers, research scientists who are really focused on, like I mentioned, that crash testing. But I see a lot of folks starting to come with skill sets primarily in the computer science and electrical engineering space, where historically we've been really focused on mechanical engineering and kind of how parts fit together, how they get smashed up in a crash. But now we're looking at kind of more nuanced as our cars become, basically computers we're driving around on the road. So we have a lot of, I think, opportunity in that space kind of as our jobs mold to accommodate some of this newer technology.
Super. Oh, that's great. And Abby, let's talk about what you're seeing at Ease. I mean, I know
Yeah.
you're still kind of evaluating the technology, but where do you see some in-demand jobs in this space right now?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what Michelle was just talking about with computer science, not related directly to autonomous vehicles, but just in the AI space, right? Computer technology and information technology, and being able to automate processes and go through data analytics and give us really good data readings and measurements is really important here at Ease. So throughout our entire business, whether it's in innovation or in logistics and actually moving freight down the road and getting your product to you in your stores, computer science, technology, automation is really important here. And then on the AV side, we are starting to see an increase in jobs of those things like driverless forklifts in warehouses or more automation. So really the programmers behind the scenes. And there's some really cool technology right now that we're testing out where we can have one driver, and it's basically like a remote control game, right? But you're driving a real forklift in a warehouse, and you can operate 2 or 3 at a time, and they don't all have to be in the same place, right? So I can be operating a forklift in Ohio, I can be operating one in California, I could be operating one in New York, all from the same place. And that's really where we see our jobs going and growing, is to utilize one person for more of those. And then obviously with the projects we've been alluding to with the autonomous trucks and that technology, it really is our drivers. And our traditional truck drivers have been upskilled and reskilled to understand and react to the technology that they're driving right now. And they went through an intensive training program in partnership with TRC. And we are going to continue to add more drivers who, are able to function with that technology on the road. So lots of opportunity when it comes to automation at Ease.
Fantastic. And Abby, did I, when you said video games, did I hear you right? Playing
You
video
did.
games can help you
You
prepare for
did.
your career, right?
Yeah. Well, don't go home and tell your parents that I said
know.
that.
All parents that are watching right
All
now,
parents that are
you can fast
watching.
forward past
Yeah,
this
you
part.
can
Yeah.
fast forward past this part, but it did remind me of a video game when I first saw it. I didn't realize that the operator was operating in a live environment on the other side. I mean, we have to be very careful from a safety standpoint because stakes are much higher than in a video game. But yeah, that's literally what it reminds me of, is you're at a screen, but you're driving real forklifts in a warehouse.
Yeah.
And it's very cool technology.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think we're going to eventually see a space where, currently you can get your CDL as, basically an additional certification to allow you to operate certain vehicles, right? I think we're going to see a world where you can get additional certification to be an operator for either different autonomous technologies, and that will likely make you more employable in this space.
I agree, Michelle.
Super fascinating. And for all the educators out there that are thinking about industry recognized credentials and all the things that are offered through our education system in Ohio, this is exactly where it's going. So you've got a preview. Keep your eyes out. Those certifications are coming soon. So let's keep the discussion rolling on education and skills. So I've heard a few areas of study. I've heard some skills. So help us fill in the gaps here for each of you. What are some of the most important skills that you think somebody ought to have that's looking at this space? And that could be a technical skill. It could be communication, collaboration. From your view, what are some of the important skills to work in this space? And maybe Abby, we'll start with you this time.
Sure. Most important, collaboration. Right. It takes all kinds of skills and backgrounds, but the one consistent across every person at Ease, regardless of their position, is collaboration. Collaboration, communication are definitely the keys to success. We obsess over communication at Ease. The most important thing to anything we do at Ease with our customers is about communication and collaboration. So aside from all of the very technical skill sets that a lot of us have already mentioned, I would say you cannot overstudy or over-practice communication and collaboration.
It's a superpower, right?
It is. It is.
Great. Michelle, what do you think?
Yeah, I really just want to double down on that, because you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't communicate what you're thinking, and vice versa, if you're not able to listen and understand a problem, you're really not going to get anywhere to solve that problem. We see it all the time at TRC. We have clients that come to us with complex new problems, and if you can't listen to them, you're never going to be able to start from that foundation and then solve it. And then once you solve it, if you can't communicate to them, hey, here's a great solution, you're really not going to get anywhere. So obviously the hard skills that we've talked about, but those soft skills are really what can make or break you in your career.
Great. For all of our storytellers in the audience, we
Mhm.
need you. We need all of you.
Right.
And Billy, this is your world in hiring. What would you like to add to all this?
So what I love to see is enthusiasm from our applicants. No matter what the role, when they speak about what they've done, the passion that's in their voice about how they love their positions. And at TRC in particularly, we have people that have been here for quite a while, and they love to share their knowledge with people and tell their stories. So when we get a candidate or a new employee that comes in and they're hungry for that knowledge, they just do amazing things here because they take that knowledge, use it to grow their own, and then expand on what we've already done. So it's just an amazing process to watch take place.
That's outstanding. Yeah, when I talk with students, I always say find what excites you, and then it doesn't even feel like work. You're just having fun and making a difference.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's talk about opportunities as we get ready to wrap up the discussion. So you work at very interesting places. What are some of the internship opportunities or early career opportunities that students out there should be thinking about, and how do they get more information on that? Billy, you want to take that first?
So, after the last couple of years, we just revitalized our internship program this year. This year, I think we had 15 interns on site, which was a considerable jump from last year. Anytime anyone would like to reach out, always the company's website's the first place. They usually have a career page. Of course, if they have internships or co-ops, those would be listed there. A lot of times companies will offer an information site where you can ask questions. That's a great way if you don't have a contact. As far as, TRC, if you would like to learn more, you're always welcome to come out for tours. We love showing off what we do. For that reason, I've been around that test track a few times at 100 miles an hour, whether I wanted to or not, but just one of the fun things I get to do. So in this year as well with the internship, we've made sure they've gotten a wide exposure to what we do here. So they've gotten to go to different customers, see demonstrations. They did some ride-alongs yesterday, as a matter of fact, with the autonomous group. And they were in the autonomous vehicles and got to ride and see exactly how things worked. They were pretty excited about that. We got them to see a crash test. So, and there's a crash test is something that some people have not seen. They've been here 20 years. So they were really excited to get to do that and kind of had some bragging rights. So they were super pumped when they got back from that activity. Usually we start our internships around January is when we start posting. So I recommend, if you're looking for an internship in our world, you have to be 18 or older due to insurance and all that fun stuff. But January is when we do our postings. We are hitting those college job fairs. If you want, Handshake is always a viable resource for postings. At least most colleges do that. Community colleges use a different group. And I apologize, I don't have that name off the top of my head. But that's pretty much how we do our internships, and we move pretty quickly and get people in here. And I think they really enjoy their time. And our ultimate goal is that, it's a test drive for all of us. They get to test drive us, we get to test drive them. And then, when they're done with college or technical school, they reach out and say, "Hey, Billy, what do you got?" And I can be like, "Hey, we've got this, this, and this, and we would love to have you back," because we already know what they can do and they know what we do.
A test drive at TRC. It's the perfect
Exactly,
analogy.
all the way around. I mean,
love it. Love it. And Abby, at Ease, what's your perspective on opportunities for students?
Yeah, I mean, we are always hiring here at Ease. So whether you are a high school graduate or have your doctorate degree, there's positions for everyone here, right? I'm sure that's true for all of our organizations that regardless of your path, there's positions for you. And that's definitely true here at Ease. We do have an internship program. So our interns actually are just wrapping up the summer program here and on their way back to college. So we do internships for college students, either currently during college or just graduated. And those range everything from being on the logistics floor and learning about freight to our marketing team. Our HR team has an intern right now. Our IT team has interns. interns. So it really is focused on department here. And you can reach out at any time on our website. Our web address for our recruiters is hiring@easelogistics.com. So if you are interested in learning more, you can always go there. But similar to what Billy said, career fairs, we show up there. Everyone, that's a great place to meet people in person. Job boards, we do a lot on LinkedIn, Indeed, the typical job boards. I had not heard about Handshake, Billy, so I actually wrote that one down for us to go and find out more and get on there, because it sounds like it's something we should be doing that we're not here. So yeah, reach out at any time, but we have internship programs, we have full-time employment, everything's always up to date on our website.
Wonderful. And Michelle, from your perspective as somebody leading technical work, how do you interact with interns, and what's the day in life might look like for an intern from your perspective?
Yeah, so we go into the recruiting season that Billy mentioned with kind of a project in mind. It's typically something that we know can be encapsulated and kind of tackled in about 3 months. Obviously, there's a ramping up period, and so we try really hard to prepare before our interns get here with basically a bucket of knowledge that they can kind of digest pretty quickly in the beginning. And then based on whatever their project is, they're typically assigned a mentor. That mentor is typically the technical expert in the group in the project they're focused on. But they do have quite a bit of freedom to kind of tackle that project however they see fit. Right now, as an example, one of our projects is actually a finite element model, which is on the edge of kind of crash safety, what we do here at TRC. As we dive into kind of some of that virtual space, we figured it'd be a great place to start for one of our interns. And then we also had a second intern that was developing all of our standard operating procedures for some video data analysis that we do. We're looking into some new technology. And so really they're getting kind of the glance into what we do in a very encapsulated space, but they have a lot of freedom to kind of take the project whichever way they see best. And then they typically have a presentation at the end and get to see, did I enjoy doing that type of work? Or did I see something else that I might be interested in? And so it's a great way to flex your skill set and see what all of your learning can look like in the real world.
Wonderful. Now that sounds super exciting. I appreciate that inside look there. That's great. So we're going to wrap up our discussion with one last question. So for each of you, what prediction do you have for a new job that might be created in the next 10 years? It's a broad question. Answer it however you want, but get your crystal balls out and think about this. So let's see. I guess we'll start with Billy this time.
I knew you were going to do that, Rich. Thank you ever so much.
Sure.
So a new job that I would see would be a battery technician with all of the electrical vehicles coming out on the market. I think that's going to be a very viable position within the next 10 years.
Yep, agree. Good one. Who'd like to go next?
I
guess. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can go. I actually agree with Billy, but also if I could predict what job was going to be really important in the next 10 years, we'd all have a lot of money, right?
Well, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, anything in technology, the batteries was a great one for Billy. I think infrastructure in general. So as we see these technologies advance, also advancing our infrastructure to capture data and create the right infrastructure for this new technology on the roads is going to be really important. So what does that look like in 10 years? I'm not sure, but I know that there will be a lot of jobs in the infrastructure to keep up with this technology.
Awesome. Michelle, any thoughts?
Well, I gave away my secret earlier in the call that I think we're going to have some different level of licensed operators as these autonomous technologies. And outside of that, I don't know if I think of as many of the upcoming opportunities as new jobs per se, but a little bit like what Abby was saying earlier in terms of the elevation of current positions. I think we're going to see a lot of jobs get molded into the accommodation of electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, alternate fuel vehicles, all into the current space, and people doing their jobs, but on a lot of different type of things.
Wonderful. Those are all great perspectives. I agree with all that. Since I put you all in the hot seat, I'll give my answer, and I will say artificial intelligence ethicist. I think I saw that listed somewhere as an emerging job. You think about all the things going on with AI. So, everyone in the audience can think of their own ideas, and we'll take your feedback. Maybe we'll get
Yeah.
a running list going here. So
Great idea.
well, we really appreciate all three of you joining us for this conversation today. It's been wonderful. We will, of course, share more information about your organizations. And I just want to thank Billy, Michelle, and Abby for all the great things you're doing and collaboration. And thanks for a wonderful discussion.